I'm going to call tonight's meeting to order. Can we have roll call?
Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Here.
Mayor Matsumoto Wright.
Here.
Councilmember Murray.
Present.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Present.
Councilmember Sonmore. Here. Councilmember Woodard.
Here.
That concludes roll call.
Thank you very much. Next is our city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of council. A couple of things I wanted to mention tonight. First, National Night Out. That was an amazing event, very well organized, and want to congratulate Jeff Betz, who's here with us this evening, but also Andrew Applewick. Did an absolute outstanding job organizing that event. Went really well, and I thought everybody enjoyed it. I wanted to thank also the city volunteers that came and helped staff that event, and all of our sponsors, but wanted to specifically mention our signature sponsor, Primera, who really stepped up, and we really appreciate their partnership. Very valuable to us moving forward as we continue these events. Next, Ballinger Park. The Ballinger Park Playground was closed for a couple days for maintenance, and I believe it was reopened this morning, if I'm not mistaken. So, okay, so it'll be reopened Saturday morning. And let's see here. South County Walks is an event that'll start at the Recreation Pavilion on the 9th at 9:30 in the morning. So start at 9:30, walk for about an hour, and wanted to mention that event for the community. Also wanted to update you all very quickly on the salary survey. So we conducted that salary survey, and then we are tweaking it a bit and making sure that we have all the comparables and all the data points correct. Carolyn has worked extremely hard on that, along with Leslie, Jennifer, and Lan. So if you see them and their heads down in their computer, that's what they're doing. But we'll have that ready to go. We have a timeline for that, and you'll hear a presentation on the methodology that we've worked on Monday. Next engagement opportunity for the comprehensive plan for members of our community. We have the online survey out now, so we encourage people to take a look at that and participate in that. We're also looking at scheduling an open house sometime in the near future for people to come in and speak with us individually and in person. So when we have that date nailed down, we will share that with you and with the community, so take advantage of that opportunity. And lastly, yesterday, our reaccreditation for WASPIC, the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, to ensure that we're following best practices. The on-site review was yesterday, went off perfectly without a hitch, and looks like we'll have that reaccreditation when the WASPIC group meets, I believe, in October. So that's a big feather in the cap for our police department. So that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer questions if you have any.
Does anyone have any questions? I just have a question on the playground. So it's fixing the ground. Was because I heard someone say, that it needs fixing already.
Yeah, some of the poured in place elements, the colorful elements on the ground cracked, and it's with concrete work. It's not out of the ordinary for things like that to happen. So we just wanted to make sure the contractor got in as part of the warranty work and got that done.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. Anyone else? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Do we have any word on what's going on with the bank across the street, the property? I guess it'd be that way.
Oh, the former U.S. Bank?
Yes.
Not at the moment, but I can look into that and update you on Monday.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Councilmember Sonmore.
Oh, sorry, August 9th at 9:30. That's the South County Walks event with Verdant, who sponsors that, and that'll be starting at the Recreation Pavilion, and people will be able to walk for about an hour with that group. August 9th. I believe that is a Wednesday. Yeah.
Or 6, 15?
Oh, yeah, there is also the public meeting or the public event for the Ballinger viewing platform. I believe that starts at 6 and the presentation starts at 6:30, if I remember correctly, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Okay. And we'll go on to the next item on our agenda, which is the review of the Supplement 3 to OTAK design agreement with our Recreation Parks Director, Jeff Betz.
It is slideshow, but it goes to this presentation. That's fine before, but I'm not going to fix it. Okay, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. I'm Jeff Betz, Recreation Parks Director. And the item before us tonight is to review supplement number 3 to the OTAK design agreement for Transportation Connection Corridor project. So this supplement, number 3, it will revise the original local agency A&E professional service agreement that OTAK signed with the city in the fall of 2022. So tonight we're going to review some background information, a proposal, the summary of funding, a timeline, and the request of council, as well as we can offer some time for discussion and questions. So first, with the background, the Transportation Connection Corridor Project, or TCCP, it involves 3 different sites, which includes the trails at Veterans Memorial Park. So there's a trail that exits at 60th Street, one at 58th, and another one at the Civic Campus. And then it also includes the trail extension that would be from Veterans Park to 236, which is between the Transit Center and the privately owned property at the former 59th Place. And then the third location is the future pedestrian plaza site, which is currently owned by WashDOT. The funding sources for this project include Sound Transit Access Enhancement Funds of $2 million, Sound Transit System Access Funds of $500,000, as well as Federal Highway Administration funds of $2 million for a total of $4.5 million. And that's for design and construction. So Sound Transit's Linwood Link Light Rail is currently under construction. We expect it to enter revenue service in mid-2024. So I know we've gone over the subject numerous times, but I still would like to just give a couple of bits of background information. That design did start in 2018, yes, 5 years ago. And it's a 4,000 square foot approximate hardscape and landscaped area. It will include seating elements and also art elements. And it's located at the corner of 236 and Van Ryn Boulevard. So the city entered into an agreement utilizing the WashDOT local agency A&E professional service agreement in 2018, and that was for the initial design of that plaza. Then we had to take a long pause during Sound Transit construction, knowing that quite a bit of changes would occur to the site. So in fall 2022, we once again entered into a new agreement for final design of the plaza connector and the trails. The next came, supplement 1 came in March 2023, and that was really just to adjust the billing rates for OTAK, which the contract allows, but it's at no cost to the city at that time. In May 2023, Supplement 2 was approved by council to add $35,000 to design costs for the related frontage along the park on 58th Avenue. So the reason we're here is for Supplement 3, which is for $87,798 for additional survey and design work related to all those changes that we've seen on the plaza site. So as you know, it's currently an active construction site, and the grades have significantly changed since our design work years ago. Some of this is expected, but as with any construction project, there's also unexpected things that happen, such as some of these final grade levels are at right now. So specifically, the final grade of the hillside has changed, and it's altered not only the slope, but also some of the related design elements, such as a wall that's at the bottom of the hillside. We thought it would be longer, and it's shorter. So there's going to be some additional geotechnical exploration required, since this is all fill dirt. So we need to make sure that we're designing accordingly and that the construction methods that we utilize will support that plaza weight. So this supplement covers design regarding those grade changes and also some additional tweaks, including electrical, since we were last on site. So this slide really just illustrates the summary of the funding so far for the design project. This is for the entire project, not just the plaza. But the original contract was $525,889. And then we have the supplement 1 and 2, which I think those dollar amounts are reversed on that slide. And then supplement 3 dollar amount for revised total of $648,687. So the total amount, that's about 14% of our total budget for the project, that design cost. So timeline, the next steps would include a recommendation to approve this supplement at your regular meeting on Monday. And then after that, the geotechnical report would be ready by October. And then environmental review will be right around the corner in October as well. And then that's when we should be at approximately 90% design for the entire project. So we anticipate bringing this project to bid in spring 2024, and then construction will be soon after in late spring, early summer. So the staff recommendation for this supplement is that the council authorize the city manager to execute that OTAK supplement number 3 pending attorney review for additional design services related to development of the transit connection corridor project. And that could occur by placing an agreement on and approving the August 7th consent agenda. But that would be before you on Monday's meeting. Other discussion or questions?
Do we have any questions? Councilmember Salmore?
I was trying to add up the total cost. So it looks like, if I'm reading the total summary funding right, it's $100,000 over what we had anticipated.
For design, correct.
And so we all know that when something's that huge out of sequence of being a lot of money and our budget is tight, and we'll be going over that here pretty soon, that we should ask, and it's just because of the way, and we were just over there, that slope is, I mean, can we take out something so we don't have to spend an extra $100,000 that is much needed for other things, as we saw when we were doing some other budget looks and we had the staff come in and say what we needed. So I'm just a little concerned, like we all should be, over spending $100,000 that we hadn't anticipated because of the slope in that area, and that slope in the area hasn't changed, so it's quite a lot of money.
Yeah, the problem is the slope has changed, which is that's the problem of why we're doing this.
Can you explain how the scope, because we knew the road is right there, We know how it's gone down. We know the platform for where they're building and putting stuff. Is it sloughing off? Is it eroding? Is it?
No, if you walk to the edge there, you can see where All Sound Transit's done their work down below. And so all of that design work has changed the amount of fill that we need to put into the actual location, the site. So we thought they were going to put more fill dirt in and that their wall would extend further, but it didn't. So they revised some of their plan set, which made us make some changes. The other piece is that, if you remember, that we brought to council is that we removed a portion. There was going to be a trail all the way around the plaza at one point, and we removed that from our plan set to make the cost, to reduce the cost of the plaza. And that was about a year ago, if you remember, and that reduced the cost of the plaza by at least $400,000, $500,000. So this is already a large reduction in the cost that we expected.
Where did that 500 in the original contract? So it's not part of the $500,000
No.
there. This is completely different, but it's still $100,000 over.
Yeah, when I say 500,000, I mean construction costs. So by doing some of this pre-design work, we scaled back some of the design, so we made construction costs lower. So this 100,000 investment is going to make it easier for us to construct the actual project.
So is there any liability with Sound Transit changing their scope of work that is allowing us to pay more? And then you were just about to say maybe there was something that we could take out, maybe to look at the scope of having that. We all know that we want that area very nice, right? But we're good stewards of money, so we always have to ask these questions, and when we don't, we're not doing our job. And so that's why I'm asking about what maybe could be done differently to save that money.
Yeah, I mean, what I was referring to is in this image here, you can see we kind of photoshopped it. There used to be a trail right here, if you remember. It was like a bypass trail that was at a lower grade than the rest of the plaza. So we made that decision to value engineer it before we came back to OTAK in this agreement, this design agreement. In-house, we did that with staff when we were talking about ways to reduce the cost, because we knew that it was going to be tough to pay for everything if we continued at the rate that we had design at. So at this point, we expect the project to be fully funded. It's all grant funding. So we have no city dollars invested other than, our staff time, obviously. We do anticipate there could be potentially other changes in any project. There always is. So we definitely would come to you if that's the case. We have a couple lines out there for some grant funding as well, just to make sure that we tie up any loose ends that potentially come our way.
But there is a trail still there. I know we walked on it. If you go, you've got the whole sidewalk, as if you consider that a trail. But is there, any seating, any other things that we can take out to make it affordable?
Yeah, I think that's going to be pretty small scale. The actual construction cost for the plaza, we're looking at probably like a $1.2 million price tag. So a lot of that is built into the actual infrastructure. When you're talking all the fill, that is a big part of it. The wall itself that we have to build is going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars just to build. And we have to build that regardless.
And it doesn't looking at this closer, that we've gone and put a lot of extra things in there, because we've got our trees, we have a bench, we've got a stone slab, and a little garden. So we're not doing anything that's out of normal, out of character, that would concern anybody for spending that much extra, is what you're saying. Yeah, there's no water feature.
Yeah, that's a good point. That at one point we did talk about having a water feature in there, and that would have been, easily $500,000, $750,000 more. So definitely tried value engineering this as much as possible, and I'm very sorry the water feature is no longer involved.
Well, Jeff, thank you. I am very comfortable with spending the extra money now that I understand it.
Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to be clear, the extra money that we're talking about is already in the grant funding.
Yes.
Is that correct? Which can't be used anywhere else or could be used somewhere else,
It can be used for design or construction.
but still in this project. So
Right.
it's going to get spent down, otherwise it gets taken back. Okay. That said, I'm very geographically challenged. That's on the record. That said, I'm looking at 237, the slide you were on, 236th and Van Rye, where it says restored slope vegetation. Now, this is where I go, am I being too literal? Because as it stands right now, trucks are driving to that very spot, right? There's a driveway there. All that will be removed, right? And then all this backfill that you're talking about. So what we walked in through our tour will not exist anymore with the exception of the pillars and all that, of course, right? But all that's going to be restructured, and there won't be any more access car-wise.
There'll still be an access down there, but we're going to have a wall built that's going to be retaining all that extra soil up into the top where the plaza will be.
Right.
So they will still have access down there, but I'm not sure how much give and take there will be with that. I'd have to look at the plan set again to
Okay,
remember.
but nonetheless, what we're looking at is like, as it stands right now, the idea of the restored slope vegetation does not exist, and we will be building that out.
Correct.
If you will. So just kind of making sure, as anybody's at home looking at this and looking over that site, you have to actually envision all of that being raised up, ergo backfilled, and then we start doing this work on top of it. But right now, it's literally driveway, so it's kind of hard to get your head around, personally. Thank you for confirming.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you. And we're going to move on to the next. And that would be the review easement agreement with Millstream.
Yes, Mayor. Good evening again. So, as mentioned, this item is to review an easement agreement with Millstream MLT West. So, Millstream MLT West is requesting the use of city-owned property at the former 59th Place cul-de-sac. And I'll give you more detail on how that will work, but this easement would allow soil anchors to be installed into city property. So the agenda is tonight, we're just going to review, similar to what we just did, some background information, the request of council, provide time for discussion and questions, and then we'll move on to decision and next steps. So the proposed easement is located on the north property line of the former 59th Place cul-de-sac. I know that's the easiest way everybody knows what property this is. It's currently being used as a temporary parking lot by Sound Transit during construction. But it is owned by Millstream MLT West, and they have a planned 8-story mixed-use development called Candela that will include 425 apartments, common amenity areas, and ground floor retail. So Millstream proposed to us, to the city and city staff, to install soil anchors that they will provide additional support to the north wall that was previously installed by Sound Transit for the temporary parking lot. So soil anchoring is a common technique by which soil slopes, excavations, or retaining or shoring walls are reinforced by the insertion of slender elements, usually steel reinforcing bars, that extend from the slope face, excavation, or retaining or shoring wall into the adjacent soil, and that are inserted into a pre-drilled hole and grouted in place. So this process, this soil anchoring, will allow Millstream to retain Sound Transit's existing walls, which will save time and money for both entities. So this agreement requires them to install no more than 400 soil anchors, and they're going to be installed at a 20-degree angle downward, as it's depicted here in this drawing. The anchors are to penetrate no further than 40 feet into city property. So the drawing depicts it, if you can see it, but it's made up of 20 feet of city-owned, unopened right-of-way, which is currently being utilized as a park. You really wouldn't notice the difference between Veterans Park and that unopened right-of-way. But technically 20 feet of it is unopened. And then an additional 20 feet of actual park property. So the entry point of that shallowest anchor is 6 feet from the top of the wall. But by the time it reaches the park property, it should be a minimum of 12 feet deep. The developer is also, in the agreement, the easement agreement, liable for detentioning these anchors. If anything happens in the future that would, require them to remove them, such as future development on the park property. So we're not locked into something in perpetuity necessarily. So for this easement, staff recommends that the council authorize the city manager to sign the attached easement agreement between the city and Millstream MLT West, and this could also occur by placing the agreement on and approving on the August 7th consent agenda. So any questions?
Let's go ahead, Councilmember Sonmore.
I'm into seeking to understand, is it 40 feet altogether that will contain no more than 400 of these poles? Is it, so 400 that goes into 40 feet? I'm just thinking, are they just lifting up all the dirt and just paving underneath? I mean, that's 400. And how big around are they? I mean, is it, I know in Edmonds, they shore up the back of, and they drill down, and it shores up the back of the line so it doesn't fall onto the railway. And so I'm just trying to picture 400 of them in a 40 feet, I don't know how wide, but 40 feet of 400 poles.
I believe they're like 6 foot on center is how they are on the
6
wall.
feet on center?
6 foot on center. So if you're looking straight ahead at the wall, it'll be every 6 feet on center all the way across, vertically and horizontally. So in rows.
So it must go back farther. It's like 40 feet by 40 feet?
No, the nails will go into, horizontally into the ground, 40 feet. Right, at an angle, 40 feet into the ground, 40 feet horizontally. But when you look at the outside, the way they put them in is 6 foot on center. So it'll look like a bunch of nail holes all the way across, essentially, but they drill those holes in. And so there are other examples of this in the city. We've done this exact thing before, easements for soil anchors.
Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Jeff. I assume this is something you've looked at, but I want to make sure I ask the question since you don't talk about it explicitly. So obviously, that's a heavily forested area that we are talking about. Did you look at depth of, kind of the trees that are located there and how that coincides with the depth of where they would be inserting those anchors?
Yeah, we talked extensively about that from internally, and then also with Millstream, obviously, and Sound Transit was also involved in this process since it's their wall right now. And the determination is that there would be no impacts at all to any of the trees there.
And then I guess just a follow-up question on that, given that I was looking over the draft contract and on the third page in the indemnity clause, it talks about the grantee being responsible for any damages to facilities, but I don't think that, I'm not sure that a tree is a facility. So I guess I'd just be curious to ensure that, it sounds like we don't think that there will be any impact, which is what I assumed, and I appreciated hearing that. And I guess I would just want to make sure that our contract does make a provision for if there was any impact to trees, that there would be financial, liability and recourse for us as a city to take care of that, to be able to fix it. So
Understood.
yeah, that would be my only input there. So appreciate the opportunity to review.
Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. Trust the answer can be plans change, but I've been under the impression that wall was going to be removed along with all the other concrete okay, we can leave it there then.
Yeah, no, you're correct. It was part of the plan in general that was temporary, right? All of that parking lot was temporary and everything would be removed. So Millstream wants to keep the north wall as well as that east wall. So that way it's going to actually save both of them. It's mentioned quite a bit of money by doing that.
Anyone else? Okay, so this is going to be on our consent calendar. No? Yeah, that's why I saw it.
It will likely be on your consent calendar, but we'll have to add in some language and get our partners' agreement on that language for the damage to trees. So if it slips a little bit, then we'll bring it back to you, but we'll remind you that we talked about it at this work session and then worked in those comments.
So we can talk about it separately off the consent calendar on Monday. I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry, it could be a different date.
Oh, a different
just
date,
because
okay.
we need to get agreement on that language, the suggested.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, Jeff. Next is the review of the pavement preservation contract with our Public Works Director, Jesse Hoffman.
Hello, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. Thank you for having me. Okay, so. The first item I have to bring to you is the review and award of the 2023 citywide pavement management contract. The purpose of this is to review the lowest responsible and responsive and responsible bid and consider approving the construction contract with Doolittle Construction for $990,900 on the consent agenda at the August 7th, 2023 meeting. I'll give you some background, the location of the project, bid process, funding, request of council, discussion, and questions. We'll leave some time for that, and decision and next steps. So a little bit of background. Chip sealing extends the life of pavement by laying down a layer of new asphalt and embedding crushed gravel in it. Actually, I should have put this in the PowerPoint. In this case, what we spec'd out is 2 layers of gravel will be set down in this. So we're what they're calling double chipping it in, which is not a cookie. Well, it should be probably. The city is implementing a pavement preservation plan to maintain streets across the city. And here's a map. This is really helpful. So if you look up at 228th here, that's going to be up by the pavilion, bordered by 56 coming down, 236 moving east to west, and Terrace Creek Park really kind of borders what would be the eastern side of the project. So fortunately, we had enough funding to be able to catch this whole area with chip sealing right here. And we picked this area specifically because the pavement was in good enough condition where we only had to do minor repairs on it. Essentially, we're laying a top layer down on top of the existing asphalt to try to preserve it for another 7 years, approximately on average lifespan. The engineer's estimate was $866,394. The request for bids advertised twice in the Daily Journal of Commerce and Builders Exchange in the city website. One bid was received from Doolittle Construction, and it was deemed responsive and responsible. They were deemed a responsive and responsible bidder. Okay, so here's the budget numbers. There's the bid at $999,900. The city's contingency is 15%, which comes to $149,985, bringing the total request to $1,149,885. The funding will come from ARPA, which was allocated by council for pavement preservation, and then the remainder will come from the street construction fund, $149,885. The total request again being $1,149,885. Staff recommendation, the staff recommends that the City Council place this item on the consent agenda August 7th, 2023, and at that time move to authorize the city manager to execute the 2023 citywide pavement management contract with Doolittle Construction in an amount not to exceed $999,900, with the city manager being authorized to execute necessary change orders up to $149,985 and to authorize final project acceptance. City Council can accomplish this as part of the motion to approve the consent calendar.
All right, do we have any questions? Councilmember Sonmore, and then we'll work our way this way.
It's really, really quick, Jesse, and maybe you said it and I missed it. Can you explain, is it all the ones in the red? And if so, the blue lines, do they just not?
So, and I'm sorry, I think I'm feeding back here. I don't know if it sounds like that to you guys too, but it's everything except for the yellow lines. It's the blue and the red lines. So we had enough in our budget to be able to take care of that whole area.
That neighborhood will very much appreciate
I
that.
think, yeah. We're excited.
All right, Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Jesse, I'm familiar with that neighborhood, and I think there are some streets with some inconsistencies, I'll call them heaves or sort of settling in areas, and wondering if there'll be some pre-work to make sure that some of that, those less than smooth surfaces that exist now will be, or might be addressed before chip seal goes down.
To a certain extent, yeah. We went and walked the area, and as much as possible, we're going to catch that with the Public Works crews. And before the chip sealing is laid down, because it'll give it a nice clean cover on top of any repairs that we make. Anything that we can't handle, we're going to have to talk to the contractor about doing, which would be where the contingency would come to play. But I think we can take care of it all. We walked it pretty thoroughly.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Ryan.
Hi, good evening. On those roads, I'm assuming that you check the road condition as far as under the top layer, as far as the condition of the road in the middle and on the gutter side, and that seems all in good shape.
Well, what we could do with the ability that we have as Public Works and engineering is to go in and look. We can eyeball it, essentially, is what it's going to break down to. We have a pavement condition index that's been done by the city in a contract, which will give us a better understanding of what our road conditions are, but we won't get those results back till October. So in order to accomplish this year and to utilize the ARPA funds that you as a council allocated to us, we're doing this, but we think it's okay. I mean, we looked at it, we don't see any buckling or anything. We see a couple spots where we have to do some crack filling, and that's why we chose this particular area.
Good, so we're utilizing the ARPA funds for this.
Yes, $1 million of them, correct.
Okay, good. So then also, then we had some studies there with the water mains and or the sewer main or the stormwater pipes for the road?
We didn't look at that for this particular project. This project is exclusively to preserve what's the pavement, the asphalt in that area, to try to avoid repairs that are more costly down the road.
Okay, so this is the top layer, and it's a chip seal, and it'll extend the road for 7 years.
On average, 7 years, so hopefully longer. Kind of just depends on wear and tear. It's a pretty residential area there, so hopefully we'll get longer than 7 years out of this.
Good. Thank you very much. Oh, I wanted to add that this is not part of the presentation, but it was really nice to see Public Works in the Tour de Terrace parade
Thank you.
at the end of it. And everybody stayed because they liked the big trucks and the lights and the horns going off. So thank you.
You're welcome, and we really enjoyed passing out lollipops too. That was a big thing for us.
Councilmember Murray.
And thank you, Jesse. I appreciate you being here and for the presentation. One, just very excited about the investment and seeing it come, to fruition, and building off of that, I think, and looking for ways to build off of that as we look forward. I guess just quick question around, just because I feel like it'll come up. So 55th, obviously, there's a couple of streets on 55th that are not part of this.
Correct.
Was that because of condition, because they're part of the Main Street Town Center plan? And I guess I would just love to make sure that I can answer that question if it comes.
So you nailed it. It's because of future development. And when those areas are developed, they are going to have to do a half-street pave overlay there. They're going to have to grind and overlay. So we left it for the future there, and we were able to save some money.
Great,
by
thank
doing
you.
that. Yeah.
Councilmember Sonmore.
Just a feel-good comment. I wanted to go off of what Councilman Ryan said. At National Night Out, you had the big trucks there.
Yeah.
So I was walking back and forth. And can you please thank your staff, because they were so gracious lifting the little children up so they were just delighted. And that's one of those moments you're happy to be a council member, because you can see this instant good. And In fact, a lot of things on this agenda tonight are all goodness for our community, but I just wanted to make sure you told them thank you for us.
I would be happy to do that. That's great, yeah.
All right, Councilmember Woodard.
Yeah, just want to echo, appreciate seeing this very real project of how we're using this money in areas that probably have felt neglected in the past and consider themselves part of the city center as well. That said, I just want to make sure that you have some form of robust communication skill, because with all this joy comes inconvenience. And so just making sure that we are communicating as early as possible and thoroughly as possible in as many ways as possible, because again, great end result, but nobody likes to actually get there. They want it to just wake up overnight, and that's not going to happen in a project like this.
So just today, we prepared a letter to send out to the residents in that area to get on it early. As wonderful as this is, it will be slightly inconvenient to the residents for about 2 weeks. They will be able to come in at night and leave in the morning, but while the work is going on in any particular section on any particular day, they won't be able to access their driveways. So we want to make sure that we are getting out the messaging early and loud, and that people know what's happening.
I had no doubt, but thank you for confirming.
Go ahead.
Quick follow-up question. Do we know those dates so that folks, or is that something to still to be determined?
It's to be determined. Should the council decide to approve this contract, then we can award the contract to, in this case, the only bidder, Doolittle Construction. And then we'll have to work out the dates, and that will probably be by their schedule. This is actually done by very few contractors in the state at this point, so oddly enough.
All right. I don't see anyone else with their hands up. So thank you. So we're going to move on to the next one, which is, again, with Jesse, the review of the 66th Avenue Reconstruction Project contract.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council again. And okay, so let's take a look at this one. We're really proud of this at Public Works. This is the review and award of the 66th Avenue West Road Reconstruction Contract. The purpose of this is to review the lowest responsive and responsible bid and consider approving the construction contract with Marshbank Construction for 66th Avenue West Road Reconstruction, for the 66th Avenue West Road Reconstruction Contract. I'll go over the location of the project, the background, bid process, funding, request of council, discussion and questions, and decisions and next steps. So here's the location. If you take a look here, can you see my mouse here? It starts at the intersection of 66th and 220th and goes all the way to the northern limits of our town, which is at the interurban trail there. So what's happening? Oh, here, I'll follow my own PowerPoint instead of going out on my own here. The project is located on 66th Avenue West roadway between 220th Street and the interurban trail. 66th Avenue West roadway between 220th Street Southwest and the interurban trail is in poor condition. It requires full-depth pavement reconstruction due to age and heavy wear by truck traffic. In addition, the recent water main replacement project that took place in that area accelerated the deterioration of the roadway. And here's a decent picture of what it actually looks like on that road. It's pretty rough. And here's a sign that says rough road, along with a bad chunk of road right there. So the project description: replacement of the road base and the installation of 10 inches of asphalt pavement. And I'll just say that's much thicker than is standard. And the reason why is the semi-trucks that are going to the transfer station, the Snohomish, South Snohomish County transfer station. Reconstruction of 9 curb ramps to meet current ADA standards. Installation of bike lanes along the roadway in the project area. Upgrading the traffic signals at the 216th Street Southwest 66th Avenue West intersection. Installation of active warning devices at the 66th Avenue West interurban trail crossing to enhance pedestrian safety. That's the RRFBs, the ones that blink so people see the pedestrians moving across. Reconstruction of the Melody Hill Retail Village driveway entrance within the right-of-way at 220th Street Southwest. Apparently, a number of years ago, we redid the sidewalk there, and when we did it, the angle was wrong, and people are scraping out on it. So we're taking care of that while we're doing this project. The engineer's estimate was $2,587,785. Request for bids advertised twice in the Daily Journal of Commerce and Builders Exchange and the city website. 7 bids were received, and Marshbank Construction was the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. So let's go over funding for a second. This is kind of the nice part. If you look at the bid, which was $2,690,715, we put a 15% contingency on it of $403,608, taking the grand total of the construction phase of this job to $3,094,323. And if you take a look over at the right here, you're going to see that we actually have a TIB grant for $2,016,025 of that right there that will get covered by that, which is pretty nice. That's very impressive. And not only that, it already covered 67% of the design that was paid for, that grant did, and will cover 67% of CEI, which is construction, engineering, and inspection costs that are associated with this, which is another contract we'll probably be bringing to you at your next session. Street construction funds will cover $548,298 of the remaining amount, and actually $200,000 of that was from the Snohomish County Recycling and Transfer Station that they paid to us for this project for the wear and tear that they do to the road from their semis. The water fund is paying $450,000, and the reason why that portion is so high is because they went up that street in 2 directions and trenched it out and put a temporary patch down. We didn't expend the money in the West Side Water Main project to repave, knowing we were going to have to rebuild the road. So this is their contribution to it, to repave the whole road. The stormwater fund is paying $70,000, and the sewer fund is paying $10,000, bringing the total request to $3,094,323.
Go ahead, Councilmember Woodard.
Unless I'm on the wrong slide, which I was following along until this slide, I'm looking at a different set of numbers and just want to make sure that we get that to the public so that they have the right set of numbers.
You know,
Okay. Yeah.
am I reading off something different?
No, it sounds like it was updated. And so if this is the most current, then it may not have made it to their, because what they're looking at is
I
what
see. That was something that was published. I'm sorry. We were still going over the grant numbers this morning, and I updated it. I apologize to council.
Yeah, and that's fine. We'll follow yours, is making sure the public gets access to that.
If it is any consolation, these numbers are a lot better on the grant funding.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's why I like those, what I was looking at.
That's why I went back and revised it. We have our new grant and contracts manager's done an exemplary job of pulling together our grant funding and figuring it out. Did that answer your question?
Yes, and again, I just want to make sure that we get it reflected online for the public. But I'm good right now. I was following it, just want to be clear.
So, yeah, what's online now as part of the agenda that people click on, go right into the PowerPoint presentation is the one that Jesse's sharing on the screen. What's part of your council packet, I think, is incorrect.
Yeah, I'm using it online.
I am so sorry, you guys. We were trying to make sure that we had the TIB grant exactly right.
It was found, can you talk, I'm sorry, do I have permission?
Go ahead.
You said the transfer station also put funds, that's what I was looking,
So what they did is they contributed to our 112th Street Construction Fund, and that's why it's coming out on this as the Street Construction Fund. So really, you could look at that as $348,298 from our internal street construction fund and $200,000 from the Snohomish County South Snohomish County Recycling and Transfer Station. But since they paid us some time ago for that, I put it as one sum. They won't cut a check. They already did a couple of years ago for this.
thank you.
We ready to move on? This is all my fault. I apologize. I was trying to get the numbers exactly right for you guys. All right. Oop, There we go.
Maybe if I refresh.
Almost done. Staff, request of council, staff recommendation. Staff recommends the city council approve the construction contract with Marshbank Construction and Company to reconstruct 66th Avenue West between 220th Street Southwest and the interurban trail and perform the various enhancements listed above, and to appropriate the funds for the Transportation Improvement Board Urban Arterial Program Grant for use on this project. Council can accomplish this as part of the motion to approve the award to Marshbank and a resolution authorizing the use of the funds on the consent calendar during the August 7th meeting. Discussion and questions. All right.
Okay, now we have
Ready.
questions. Councilmember Ryan?
Thank you. I'm really excited about this road construction because I know I'm not the only one that, when I drive down that hill to go to the transfer station, I'm spilling a lot of coffee when I'm trying to drink, and it's just going all over my clothes. Luckily, they're work clothes because I got garbage there. But I have, besides that being funny, I do have a lot of citizens that want to know what's going on with the road. So it's going to be nice. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, just as a comment, I get a lot of pothole requests that just say 66th Avenue. You know, like in general, you know, they'll like list the intersections, everything in between, so, yeah.
I thought, okay, go ahead, Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Jesse. And I would just, echo appreciation. I'm excited about the improvements to the pedestrian and bicycle safety there on the interurban trail, because that is definitely, I've watched that be dicey multiple times going through that area. And then I was going to say one other thing. Oh, I guess I just wanted to recognize, because I think you touched on it, but for folks that are kind of tuning in, I mean, I appreciate the thoughtfulness from city staff in planning this project to where we are saving significant amounts of money because we did that sewer and water main project before doing, this reconstruction of the pavement. And so just, I really appreciate that city staff continues to look for ways to combine, needed maintenance and improvements in the city in a way that ultimately helps us to be more cost effective. So appreciate that very much.
I will thank them because they've taken a lot of heat for not fixing it while we were waiting for the water main project to move through it, but we're really excited to move this forward.
Go ahead, Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, just echoing, I really appreciate this project. I use that road quite a bit, to the point that I know if I'm going northbound and I pass that intersection, do not be in the right-hand lane unless you want to go for a big dip and then come back up to the street. So I'm glad to know those are going to be fixed. That said, for those of us who go up that hill quite often, I'm sure it's got to be mind-boggling to think, how are you getting bicycle lanes there, which I'm pro-bicycle. So I'm all about it, but can we talk about at some point, again, the design? I didn't see it in here, just from people who are hearing it, because as the bullets, you go, wait, what? It's like, there's not enough people. And I know we talked about the left-hand turn, that the signal timing will be worked on. I'm just thinking about, as somebody who's learning about this project, I know how great it is because we've talked about it, but somebody coming new to it won't know. We have talked about the timing of the lights because they're not the greatest now, right? And so in that regard, you're fixing that aspect of it. I believe we're going to do better crossing for pedestrians, if I remember correctly. And maybe design's not this conversation, but sometime soon, I would say we should revisit that.
Well, the design is complete for this at this point.
Yes.
What I can do for council is I can get a cutout of what a road section looks like and have it sent to the council so that you guys can have a look at it.
Excellent.
How that's
And again, I'm thinking, I think we've seen it a lot, but I'm thinking for folks who are going to think this is brand new because they just learned about it, making sure we have that in these types of presentations. That's why I was saying I want to make sure the slide was correct on the numbers, because I do know people do go right to the website to learn and then ask us questions. I'm like, we can put a bunch of that in there and it'll save some time. But it'd be questions like that where I'm sure folks are trying to understand, how can I get bicycle lanes there? And we know, well, that was part of the grant, right, first and foremost. So it wasn't like we absolutely wanted it there, but we can see the power of it, build it, and they will come. And it does lead up to the interurban trail, so it's like it makes sense. But for drivers, we might need to make it make sense for them.
So I made a note to get a cutout of the road section to council, and also we have an engineer now assigned to start updating the website, and I'll have that person put a cutout on the project page so that people can see how that is set up.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Okay. All right. So I think we're done with this one.
So
And it's,
the next, I'm sorry, ma'am.
oh, I was just going to say, it's going to be on the consent calendar, but we're not that far yet.
No, we are. It will be on consent calendar. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so now we're going to move on to the next, which is the review of the Snohomish County Solid Waste Interlocal Agreement.
One more to go, sorry. Give me 1 second. Okay, so this one I don't have a PowerPoint for, everybody. I'll have to read it to you, so I'll be staring at the paper. Please excuse me for that. The subject is the approval of the 15-year interlocal agreement on solid waste management with Snohomish County. This interlocal agreement covers the disposal of waste generated in the city of Mountlake Terrace at county facilities per the Snohomish County Comprehensive Solid and Hazardous Waste Management Plan. The agreement provides the following services for the city and its residents: access to disposal sites for solid waste generated within the city as described by the Snohomish County Solid and Hazardous Waste Comprehensive Plan, access to disposal sites for household hazardous waste generated by residential households located within the city, county operations of the Snohomish County solid waste system and facilities. The agreement also outlines shared responsibilities for enforcing the use of Snohomish County disposal facilities by residents and for public outreach and education's solid and hazardous waste disposal per the Comprehensive Solid and Hazardous Waste Management Plan. If passed by the City Council, this agreement will be in effect until December 31st, 2038, and would supersede the previous agreement between Mountlake Terrace and Snohomish County regarding solid waste management, which was signed in 2003. So I want to say this is really confusing, and I think I wrote it in here somewhere, but this is not our waste management contract. This is our agreement with Snohomish County that we're going to use their facilities to dispose of the waste that Waste Management is removing from everybody's house. So it's very confusing, so I just wanted to say that outright. This agreement covers where solid and hazardous waste should be taken to be disposed of and obligates the city of Mountlake Terrace to direct its residents and vendors to utilize the designated sites operated by Snohomish County as disposal locations per the Snohomish County Solid and Hazardous Waste Comprehensive Plan. This agreement does not cover the collection and transport of residential and commercial solid and hazardous waste to the designated sites. Those functions are handled by the city with a separate contract held by a private vendor. Recommendation: the staff recommends the City Council place this item on the consent agenda for the August 7th, 2023 meeting for approval.
All right, do we have any questions? Questions, comments? Councilmember Sonmore?
Really quick comment. Maybe when you talk to them, one of the biggest complaints I always hear with hazardous waste is if you want to take your paint, you have to bring it up to Everett. And that's a big complaint because a lot of people can't get there, or they leave it out and they put kitty litter in it, and where we really would like to recycle. And so if they could someday maybe have something a little bit closer would be wonderful.
I can email the head of the Public Works Solid Waste Division and see if they have any plans to move something closer.
Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. All right, Jesse, I think I'm following, but I may not be, so you can tell me if my question doesn't make sense. So the question I guess I have, so we're talking about where Waste Management takes our waste when they take it away from the street for
Correct.
residents. Okay, and so my question is, so our local transfer station no longer takes organics, and they take them, but they only take them as waste. So I guess my question for you is, when organics are picked up street side, does that mean that they are being treated as waste versus organics when we are processing them at a city level? And does this agreement have anything to do with that?
So let me unpack that one a little bit there. So the answer is no, it is not being treated as waste.
Okay.
It is Waste Management has their own agreements to deal with green waste, and I believe there's state laws, but don't quote me on that involve what you have to do with that. And then what was the second part of the question?
Well, I guess I just wanted to make sure that we didn't need to have that conversation as part of this conversation, that our ultimately organics were being, treated as organics versus waste, and that we
Yeah.
didn't need to have some additional conversation here as part of this agreement
Well,
to ensure that that happened and continued.
I don't think we do, and so this doesn't cover recycling, and it doesn't cover green waste. It only covers solid waste.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I appreciate the clarity.
It's a super confusing subject. That's why I was trying to clarify it. Yeah.
So everything we bring to the solid waste place in Mountlake Terrace is solid waste, no matter what it is.
Right, and so if you're bringing green waste there, then it is getting treated as solid waste, and then is getting put on a semi, which is running up 66th Avenue West, which is why we are having to rebuild that whole road, so.
All right. Anyone else? Okay, I think we can move on then. Thank you. Okay, so we're finally at number 9, which is the presentation of the 2023 first quarter financial report and 6-year financial forecast with our Finance Director, Janella Lewis.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, and community for this opportunity to present the first quarter financial report for 2023. My name is Janella Lewis, and I'm the Finance Director. So the purpose of this presentation is to review the city's finances for the first quarter of the year. And we'll be highlighting the City Council's goals for the budget, including planning, finance, develop, and maintain quality services, infrastructure, and amenities. Review city finances regularly to ensure fiscal responsibility and develop and implement plans to ensure long-term funding and maintenance of public infrastructure. On the agenda is the overview of the funds. We'll go over the general fund, the Recreation Fund, Street Operating Fund, Enterprise Funds, REIT, and the Street Construction Funds. Then we'll have a conclusion, and there is no request unless you have questions. Is that better? Okay. And you'll see here an overview of the major city funds. So we have the general fund, the recreation fund, the street operating fund, the 3 enterprise funds, which is water, wastewater, and stormwater utility funds, and the capital funds, REIT, street construction fund, and the other capital fund is not presented. Thank you. Okay. Okay, is everything better? Testing, testing?
No, it's echoing now.
Toward me or away? Towards you? Hello?
That sounds good.
I'm just too loud?
Sing your favorite song.
Yeah. Yeah. So the general fund pays for the city council, community and economic development, parks and property management, police, contracted fire services, which will go away in 2024 since the annexation, city manager, finance, human resources, and IT, municipal court, which is in-house and contracted out. Here's a summarized list of the majority of the general fund revenues. In your packet is a more detailed report that shows the budget and actual revenues received by the general fund from the years 2019 through the first quarter 2023. Again, the property tax EMS will go away, and all of these revenue sources do not go away. Sure.
Totally random. We had a tobacco store where, is it Hadiani? Is that how you say that, Hadiani, in that same shopping center? That's no longer there. And I'm just curious what happened. I don't know if that's our, oh, yeah, is that city business or is that one of those offline conversations? Okay, I'll leave it alone then.
Yes?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As long as we're paused on this slide, I did have just some questions on what, so if we look at the trends, so this is all based on first quarter revenue.
Yes.
From each year, right?
Yes.
So any idea, I mean, well, I'm particularly looking at sales tax and development services as to why we're seeing any speculation as to why we're seeing a drop in sales tax revenues for the first quarter, and any sense of where we may be with the development fees as to, you know, is that just due to timing, and we're going to see those increase throughout the year, or are we seeing a drop off of development services fees?
Yeah, I actually asked that question of CED and the development services. So what happens is they apply for permits and all of those things before they go into development, and once they get approved, then we see the revenues. There is a time lag.
Right.
With those.
But so it just so happens that previous quarters, the timing was that the revenues came in during that quarter, whereas this year it's lagging a little bit. So we're going to see it catch up by the next quarter or the next whatever throughout
Yes.
the end of the year. Okay.
Yes.
And then sales taxes, any idea on where?
Not really certain about why sales tax numbers are down in the first quarter. We'll have to look at the second quarter to see how that looks.
Trend continues. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. That's it. Thank
The
you.
gambling tax is up.
might be a timing issue also.
Sales tax revenue.
I'll look into that further, though, for you.
Thank you.
Just writing a note. Okay. As of the end of the first quarter 2023, general fund revenues were as follows. The property tax revenue for the first quarter 2023 were 8% of the adopted 2023 budget. It is customary for property tax revenues to be well below budget prior to the April 30th due date. Sales tax collections for the quarter totaled $1.08 million, or 28% of the adopted budget. This is a decrease of $9,613 over 2022. Utility taxes were at budget at 25% of the annual budget, totaling $992,000 for the quarter. Gambling tax revenues were slightly above the budget projections, totaling $312,000, or 28% of the adopted budget. Gambling tax revenues are back to the pre-pandemic levels and exceeded 2022 first quarter revenues by $37,000. Admission tax revenues were up by $14.9 million compared to the 2022 first quarter actuals of $12.6 million. Admission tax revenues were up by $14,000 compared to the 2020 first quarter of 12.6. Development fees totaled $258,000, or 10% of the annual budget. Developed fee revenues are lower than projected in 22 due to a decrease in development activity within the city and playing catch up with what they're doing. State shared and intergovernmental revenues were 28% of the adopted budget and appear to be on track to meet budget projections by the end of the year. Fines and forfeitures were below projections at 22% of the adopted budget, but not as low as 2022, which was at 7% of the budget. Other fees and charges were below budget, totaling $25.7 thousand, or 9% of the adopted budget. Overall general fund operating revenues for the first quarter were at 18% of the 23 adopted budget, is a little below the average of the past few years. In the memo that you have, you'll see the breakdown between 2019 to 2023. Total general fund operating expenditures for the first quarter were at 23% of the adopted budget, which is also a little below the past few years. The Recreation Fund covers the revenues and expenditures of the city's recreation services, including aquatics, athletic, fitness, youth, and general recreation programs. The fund has a target of recovering 83% of its overall cost through user fees. The remaining 17% of the cost for recreation programs is funded by the general fund. And we are going to be proposing an amendment to the transfer that goes to the Recreation Fund to fill that gap from 2022. So if you'll notice in the report, it came down lower, and then the ending fund balance was still in the red for 2023 first quarter. The Recreation Fund operating revenues for the quarter totaled 30% of the adopted 23 budget. Revenues from aquatics programs are at 17% of budget. Athletic fitness program revenues are at 25% of the budget as the end of the first quarter, and youth program revenues are at 46% of the budget. Total recreation operating expenditures at the end of the first quarter of 23 were at 24% of the adopted 23 budget. The street division maintains greater than 60 miles of city streets, 500 city-owned street lights, 15 signalized intersections, 3,300 signs, 17 miles of sidewalk, numerous crosswalks and pavement markings, vegetation for greater than 19 miles of planting strips, and unimproved right-of-ways. The street operating fund expenditures through the first quarter represent 19% of the 23 budget. The enterprise utility funds, these are funds with revenues from user rates and fees. Like a business enterprise, these funds cover their own costs without the help from outside funds. By and large, under Washington law, these revenues cannot be used to subsidize programs other than those related to the utility. The rates in each fund are made up of 3 components: a portion to cover maintenance and operations, a portion to cover debt on funds borrowed in the past to make repairs and upgrades, and finally a portion towards reserves for replacing and upgrading the systems. The Stormwater Utility Fund, the goals are to protect and monitor water quality, reduce flooding, spill response, meet city's regulatory requirements, inspect 120 businesses, and educate the community about how they can help protect water quality. They manage stormwater through 4 watersheds, including 52 miles of pipe, 7 miles of creeks, and 2,000 storm drains. Most revenue in the Stormwater Utility Fund is based on a flat rate and is therefore steady throughout the year. Stormwater operating revenues totaled $677,000, or 16% of the adopted 23 budget at the end of the first quarter, which is within the budget projections. Stormwater operating expenses, including debt service, totaled 19% of the adopted 23 budget at the end of the first quarter. Stormwater operating revenues exceeded operating expenses by approximately $137,000 for the first quarter. These funds will be used to make future debt service payments and capital projects. And then there's your revenue and expenditure trends for the first quarter, 2019 to 2023. You see a big spike there because of the rate increase. The Sewer Utility Fund is also the funding source for capital improvements to the city's wastewater collection system and for the city's share of the cost of capital improvements to the wastewater treatment plant. As of the end of the first quarter, total sewer operating revenues were at 16% of the adopted 23 budget. Sewer operating expenditures, including debt service, total 18% of the adopted 23 budget at the end of the first quarter. Sewer operating revenues exceeded operating expenses by approximately $142,000. These funds will be used to make future debt service payments and capital projects. And again, the revenue and expenditure trends for the first quarter for 2019 through 2023. The Water Utility Fund, the goal is to distribute potable water to MLT residents and businesses via 90 miles of distribution pipes, 3 water reservoirs, 900 hydrants, access holes, 2,700 control valves, 6,000 service connections, and 2.5 million gallon water tanks, and water quality testing and capital improvements. So you can see this nice picture of the west side water main replacement to replace the pipes that were installed in the 50s and 60s. Operating revenues in the Water Utility Fund are at 13% of the adopted 23 budget as of the end of the first quarter. Operating expenses, including debt service, total 14% of the adopted 23 budget at the end of the first quarter. Water operating revenues are under operating expenses by $35,900 for the first quarter. These funds will be used to pay for future debt service payments and capital improvements. And again, the revenue and expenditure trends for the first quarter 2019 to 2023 for the water utility funds. Real estate excise tax revenues. REIT revenues totaled $181,000 for the quarter. This represents 12% of the adopted budget. The Street Construction Fund covers capital construction projects to provide, preserve, improve street, pedestrian, bicycle, and traffic control facilities. The ongoing revenue sources for this fund are a portion of the city's allocation of the motor vehicle fuel tax, traffic impact fees, and interest that accrues on funds in the account. Additional funding is provided by state and federal grants and appropriations, loan proceeds, interagency financial participation, and real estate excise tax. License tab fees that were initially received by the Transportation Benefit District are now receipted directly into the Street Construction Fund and used to pay for Main Street design and construction costs. Because these funds are restricted by law to be used only for street construction and not street maintenance, they are kept in a fund that is separate from other funds. The capital projects supported by the funds are those identified in the Transportation Capital Facilities and Improvement Program, TCFIP, and the Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP. The typical projects include street pavement overlays and seal coats, sidewalk and sidewalk ramp construction, bicycle route signing, and striping, street construction, and traffic control system upgrades and installations. At this time, construction revenues and expenditures are consistent with the budgeted programs in the TIP and TCFIP. The ending fund balance totals $6.5 million at the end of the first quarter, and $983,000 is transportation impact fees, which are restricted in use. In conclusion, the city's first quarter finances highlight the council's adherence to financial policies. These policies are allowing the city to withstand the financial strain from the pandemic recession. And the next quarterly update is planned for August 31st. Any questions? Comments? Do you want to go over the big, giant document?
We have a question down there. Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, thank you very much. Again, you very methodically and calmly walk us through what I'm sure is a lot of work to keep this in front of us in such a digestible, understandable way. That said, if you were to go back to slide 23, and I'm just going to tell you, I'm a color code guy, so I just go, hey, wait a minute, everything looks fine, and then I look at this slide and I go, well, this is the first time the blue line is higher than the green line, and I feel like we should pause and address that.
Which one is slide 23?
That one, you're on it.
Okay.
Right? So not only is the left bar usually much higher, but this is the first time we see on the right, not only is it lower, but it's actually, from a revenue generating standpoint, almost 2019's number, which is before we changed the water rate, so we almost seem like we're below. Like, what's going on there, I guess is what I'm saying. Right? It seems to be we should pause and put some words around that. Please do. Do you need to modify that into a better question?
No, the question was great. I would just add to it because it was one of my questions, so I appreciate the opportunity. So the same was true for the sewer, for all three of those funds, and I guess sewer, wastewater, and water, that the revenues were down for each. So I think to Councilmember Woodard's question, I'm curious about that decrease, just because to his point, actual rates have increased, so.
Yeah, it's probably a timing issue when the billing is done. But I can look into that.
Did we have a lot of projects for water and sewer and stormwater this year? I don't remember any.
For 23?
Mm-hmm.
So we did some of those, and we'll look in to get you full details for each fund, but some of those we were saving for larger projects, and then we built them. One pops specifically to the top of my mind is the West Side Water Main project. We expended all those funds to complete that project after we had been saving for them so that we could pay for it. But we can get you full details for each of those funds if there's any discrepancy between storm, water, or sewer, and explain those differences, or try to anyway.
I think, are you asking this because our bills are
And
so
we
high?
can actually look at, let me.
And our bills are high, what are we spending it on? And try to explain to our citizens. Yes.
That's my question.
Yeah.
So the trend of.
It's like all of the above, yeah.
Let's look. Let me share. So if we go down to, excuse me if I'm scrolling too fast, I think there's the sewer fund. I am on page 19 of 28. I know, well, do you want to look at water? Look at water, or any one of them, I guess we could look at. So the capital facility charges, buy-in fees, are a lot less than they were in prior years. But for the quarter, I'll have to look at the other report that I have that shows the actual quarterly revenue comparison. Because right now, this shows the full year. It's not a good comparison, as the other report that I have, where I get the percentages, are not presented here. So I can look at that.
In the spirit of, lots of things that you have on your plate, we can also wait till the second quarter to see how it comes, if you're not concerned.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, maybe it balances out, because I know that they're changing the meters, so maybe they're reading differently, and somehow that's doing something with the math. But at the end of the day, yes, the real question is, every time the water bill's out, we know when it's out. Right? And I'm tired of my mama getting dragged across the carpet like this, so it's one of those where I'm like, oh, this doesn't line up. I'd like to at least be able to reflect back. Yes, it might be high, but here's what's happening. And we do have examples of how we're using that money, which I appreciate as well.
So Councilmember Seymour?
I'll just do two questions. The first is the donation under other financing. I'm on attachment A, and it would be page 2. And it looks like in 2019, we had 5,000. We actually had, I think, $20. That was the actual. 21, we had $2,000. Our actual was $10,000. However, our actual for first quarter of 2023 was $20,000, which is it looks like a 206% increase of the actual budget.
Yeah, I can look into what that donation was if you'd like me to.
And then the senior center as well, we have $18,000 across the board as rent. And I'm assuming we're looking at that as well. And I'll stop there.
Donations in general fund went up by 206%. Why? Okay. And then the other question was? Oh.
Markets and festivals, it looks like
It
in
says battery is low.
2021, it was $4.
Recreation fund. Is that the one that has, let me look at one question first. Were you looking at donation in the recreation fund? Is that what you were
Oh,
looking at?
no, that's that newer question, but I can stop and ask you that one during a finance meeting. But it just was glaring at me. The page 2 on attachment A, under other financing resources about donations.
Okay, I wrote that one down, yeah. And then what was your other question?
Oh, it was the market and festivals but that one is under recreation, so I'm thinking that we've got a new budget for that, because looked like $4 in 2021 and 2022, and our adopted budget is 50, and we haven't spent any.
Let's see, where is that? Page,
And I could go back and, I don't have my other
7?
report. Yes, please.
oh, let me make this bigger. There. Is that better? People can read it on the screen. What was your question?
I can't even.
Oh, markets and festivals?
I'm thinking that we didn't have any.
Yes.
$4?
No. Hi,
As I recall, that's like half of our revenue.
so that is in the same category of general recreation, but markets and festivals, we used to hold before the pandemic inside the pavilion lobby, and we would do just small, minor things. Oh. We would hold little markets where we'd sell things, we'd bring in vendors. We haven't done that a few years now.
Thanks, Jeff.
We don't have the $4 anymore.
It died. It died a miserable death. Try and turn my computer on. What's your other question?
That was it.
Mayor,
have a
I'll just
question? Go ahead.
point out if, it seems like we've got a number of clarifications and questions, and if you're going to be back before us at the end of this month, maybe that's the best time for it.
August 31st. Yes, I will be presenting the second quarter. So if you have questions, you can write those down, and I'd be happy to, or email them to me, and then I'd be happy to include those answers on the second quarter report. Does that sound good?
Okay.
I'd just like to say also, Janelle has been working on this extremely hard. We had to get the 2022 books closed before we could start producing the first quarter report, which is why you're not seeing the first quarter until August. In future years, you'll see first quarter likely in May, and then it will run on a regular schedule after that. But done a lot of the groundwork up front to make sure that those future reports go smoothly, and we'll be able to get you the information that you would like to see.
You're welcome. Now, the laptop died.
Where's the power?
I don't know. I was trying to find it.
Where is the power button?
Oh, no, there's a financial
Are
forecast.
we taking, did we want a break?
Where's the power button?
As long as we have a
Can we take a 5-minute break? All right. Yes.
Technical.
Okay, so I guess everyone's back.
Recording in progress.
Thank you. So we're back from our break, and we can continue with the presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, and community for the opportunity to present the 23 through 28 six-year financial forecast. My name is Janella Lewis, and I'm the Finance Director. Hello again. The city maintains a 6-year financial forecast as part of the City Council's goals to protect and enhance the city's financial health and stability while maintaining appropriate and essential public services in a cost-effective manner. The forecast lays out the anticipated revenues and expenditures in each of the city's main funds over the next 6 years in order to ensure spending does not outpace resources, while also balancing and achieving the council's priorities. A review of the forecast is done at the end of the summer as one of the first steps in a city's development of a budget for the next calendar year. Although Mountlake Terrace adopts a 2-year biennial budget that would not require a review this year, the City Council has traditionally reviewed the forecast at the end of every summer to ensure the city stays on track financially. So the agenda for this is we're going to go over the projected revenues and expenditures, a comparison of projected revenues and expenditures, and then we'll have the conclusion. And if you want to, at the end, I can pull up the big giant document of the forecast if you have questions. So the general fund for 2022, the budget versus the actuals. So this is the budget and then the actual revenues for the expenditures and actuals. The projected revenues for 2024 are lower than what was budgeted because we've not yet added the budget amendment for the Regional Fire Authority annexation in April. The contract with the RFA will be discontinued starting January 2024, as will the EMS property tax levy. We'll also be taking $1.6 million off of the top of the regular tax levy.
Not been taken into account yet?
Has not been, yeah. So you'll see in the report there's a revised budget, and then there's the projected for 23 and 24. You'll see that it's quite different.
Okay,
Yeah.
So it is accounted for in the spreadsheet here.
Yes, in the spreadsheet. This is just a projected revenues of this is what we're thinking of seeing. That's how come the transport fees go away. You can see the different colors for projected 23, projected 24, projected 25, but then transport fees, you can see that goes away because that is just to pay for fire. So, but you can't see that here in the property tax because we lump property and EMS.
And transport fees refer to ground ambulance transport
Yeah.
fees? Yep.
The general fund projected revenues, and also today we're only going over the general fund. We won't be going over the other funds. That's how come this is so much thinner than the other presentation. So you can see the other taxes, business, animal, other licenses, development service fees, and the franchise fees, and cable and PUD. And again, the projected numbers are based for 23 and 23 are based off of 2022 actual. So that's why you'll see a difference in the projected from the revised budget. And you can see there's the other revenues, state shared and intergovernmental revenue, fines and forfeitures, other fees and charges, and gambling taxes. The dip in the revenues is due to the 1.3 million in EMS property tax revenue going away in 2024 due to the RFA annexation. If we had the expenditures up here, you would see a dip in that also because of the fire contract of $3 million also goes away. And the LEF, that goes away. And that concludes today's presentation. And let's see. The next long-range forecast will be after the first quarter 2024, and it'll include all of the funds. I wanted to give you guys, I wanted to look at what the state says, and I didn't have the time to look at those for their forecast and include it in this slide. So I want to give you a more comprehensive view at the time of the budget process also. Any questions?
So do we have any questions? Shall I go straight to the Mayor Pro Tem? Okay, we'll go to Councilmember Murray first.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Janella, for all of the work. I would echo what was already said, appreciation for all of the work that goes into putting this together. Just, I guess, a quick, more like a comment, I guess, because you mentioned franchise fees, and those have been trending down, which I think makes sense given kind of what we know about people's kind of usage of cable. But I guess I'd just be curious, we have those trending up in our projections. So I guess that's just one thing that maybe we could take a closer look at before we dive into budget stuff next year.
Yeah, we can do that, definitely.
Thank you.
And if I can add to that a little bit, we're in the middle right now of renegotiating almost all of our franchise agreements for telecom. And I expect to bring those to you hopefully early in the fall. We're working with the third of 3 providers right now. The other 2 have been finalized. And then at that time, we'll be able to more accurately project what those revenues will look like.
Okay, anyone else before we go to the Mayor Pro Tem? Okay, you're on.
Thank you all, and thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Janelle. Just, I appreciate the challenge that you've been under for the last, since you came aboard, really.
Yeah. Thank you.
And where we're at, and recognizing, and just appreciating that we're even at the point where you can present the first quarter and then be able to follow up with the second quarter in a few weeks. And so a huge thank you that we're getting back to where we need to be financially, at least accounting-wise. That said, there are challenges ahead. But I did want to point out, so it'll be interesting, because what I'm seeing here based on the 28 revenue, we're looking at a revenue of 30.9 million, expenditures of 18.8 million, with 9.7 million unreserved. So things look really healthy, I guess, based on this forecast at this point. And that's taking into account, that was some of my questions, that's taking into account fire, redistribution, and whatnot. What it's not taking into account, oh, by the way, that's looking good, but don't take a look at the water fund, because the water fund, on the other hand, is 14 million under.
Yes, that does not, the water fund.
Yeah, we say, and as we know, that's going to be a whole nother discussion, unfortunately, we're going to have as to how we're going to deal with that. But in general, we've got, as I point out, just the general fund and general revenues, general operating expenditures, things look reasonably healthy, but it's not taking into account the salary survey that we need to come to terms with.
Yep.
And so that'll be interesting to have that discussion and what we need to do just to be able to retain quality employees.
Yes.
The other area, and then it also takes into account some of, obviously the budgeting here takes into account the ARPA dollars and how that was distributed, correct? So
yes.
based on how we distributed and allocated the different areas, that plays in here. But I do have some questions as to, there were some areas of the ARPA dollars and how those were allocated and how they were utilized in the last budget cycle, where we allocated some dollars, for instance, to boards and commissions. And we did some things weird, where some dollars came from the general fund and other dollars came from the ARPA fund. And so we're going to have to come to terms with that. And I am curious where some of those, for instance, the allocations that we made, some of those special allocations we made during the budget cycle, last budget cycle, how are those taken into account in the long-term forecast as far as, especially the differences based on, all things being equal, for instance, arts and DEIC, and some of the needs, but they were funded differently. How is that being, how is that allocated in a financial forecast as an ongoing basis, which is a prelude to a conversation we're all going to have come the next budget cycle as to how we want to distribute those, what programs we want to have ongoing and continue to fund, and that's going to have an impact on the long-term budgeting, recognizing that, again, some of it was funded through ARPA dollars, some of it was funded through general fund dollars. That all said, how is that taking into account in this forecast?
Yeah, so,
And where can I find that, for instance, going back to the quarterly report, where can I find the expenditures? Where are the line items on some of those expenditures?
okay, let me pull up the quarterly report and, oops, that's not the quarterly. So I did create a spreadsheet for the one-time expenditures that have to do with the ARPA dollars, and also the one-time expenditures. I took into account what you had stated at one of the meetings about the one-time expenditures should be below the line. And so I did put those in there. Let me share my screen with you.
Which page?
She's going to share the screen.
Share. So I'll share the first quarter report. And so, where am I?
The first two pages are revenues, right? So,
Yeah, so the other financing uses, that is on page 3.
right?
Of the quarterly report, and you can see here where the one-time transfers out for the ARPA fund are in here. The one-time expenditures for ARPA, I'm able to track that $1.1 million. This is for the one-time expenditure for 23 and 24. This is what we've spent so far for the, what's that position called? Event coordinator. Thank you, Jeff. And then also in here, the other time expenditures, this $570,000 is some other costs that I have not broken, I haven't shown here, but I know what makes up this $570,000. So I am able to track that. I'm working closely with departments to determine where those are. Now for the coordinator, that would be for in the future, in the projection. You can see in the projection here, it's in this park services line. That's where he's paid out of. So for 25 through, I don't know if you can see that, 25 through 28, his time is included in the future costs. And part of the police cadet, which did not start until the second quarter. So that's why the number is so low. Some of these expenditures, the one-time costs that were budgeted have not been spent yet in the first quarter and in the second quarter. So we're just starting to get contracts together for things, so, yeah.
Yeah, but see, I guess that part of that gets back to what we allocated during the last budget cycle, some using ARPA dollars, some using general fund dollars, but what of those were one-time expenditures versus ongoing expenditures? versus, for instance, the funds that were allocated for events, not the events coordinator, but for events and for DEIC, for strategic plan, for kind of staffing or consulting or whatever role, the funds that were set aside for the boards and commissions.
Those are not included up above the line as continuing, because we were told not to.
Any of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so
Because
that's.
they're truly one-time expenditures, so
Okay.
yeah.
So in other words, that has not been allocated, or as part, that is not currently, any of that is, whether it was ARPA dollars or general fund dollars, any of that is taken into account into the financial forecast, that 6-year forecast.
Correct.
Okay, so that is, so in other words, if we do want to spend do any of those ongoing programs, those things will be in addition to the bottom line that we're seeing in the financial forecast.
Correct.
So we'll need to make sure that we understand that come the allocation cycle again, the budget cycle.
Yeah.
And kind of take a close look at what we did and what we may want to continue doing, or how we might want to change it or reallocate it.
Yes.
So anyway, so those are just some points I wanted to make sure we highlight as we're thinking about going forward and having discussions. I know Finance Committee will have some additional discussions as we go along, and then looking forward to the second quarter report to get maybe a better idea or more clear picture of where we really are on some of those things, that some areas that we're lagging and that we have no explanation for, if it's an ongoing lag or problem or challenge that we're going to continue facing, or was it just a matter of timing? Anyway, so appreciate again the fact that we are even here where we are now to be able to start having real discussions about money.
Yeah, I'm excited for the budget cycle, because we're going to start a lot earlier than 4 months before it should be adopted.
Right.
So I'm really excited.
Yeah, so, and yes, and we're looking forward to having those conversations and getting a better idea of where we're going, what we want to do, and how we achieve our vision for the city.
Yeah.
So thank you again for everything, and we're looking forward to continued discussion.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Councilmember Salmore?
I've got a really hard question. No. My question again is, we do appreciate you, and I just want you to know that.
Oh, thank you so much.
We all do.
Last month was a year. Yeah.
It was a tough year.
Yeah.
All right, anyone else? Okay, we'll look forward to the next report,
Wonderful. Thank you.
end of the month. Okay, so next we have public comments. Do we have anybody?
No one signed in, and there's no one in the online audience. So that concludes public comment.
Okay. Then the review of the August 7th meeting agenda. Has everyone looked at it? All right. And we'll move on to council comments. Councilmember Payne Donovan?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to sort of acknowledge some messages that I believe probably all of us have received from some Mountlake Terrace residents, and I've flagged this for the city manager earlier today, but it looks as though some of our rental or our residents who happen to rent in certain buildings around town are being saddled unexpectedly with new fees for services they've haven't agreed to, et cetera. I think, these fees are concerning to me, and we've been asked as council to do something about it. And I for one, been hearing a lot about this in the news from friends who rent. I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, the White House issued some guidance on what they're calling junk fees that are being tacked on to renters. Rent effectively without any discourse or buy-in from them. I think, we've been asked to sort of to respond or discuss this issue, and I guess I'd appreciate, if perhaps staff can look into this. And I know from my day job that there's probably not any state regulation on this, but I do feel compelled that to bring this up, and I hope that we'll have a chance to discuss this sort of behavior from landlords. I think it's just in terms of fairness and transparency, pretty unconscionable to tack another few $100 on somebody's bill over the course of a year, and seems pretty unfair, especially given the climate that we all sort of exist in today, with housing costs being what they are and what we know rental housing costs to be. So just want to acknowledge that this is before us, and that hopefully we can discuss some ways that we can address this type of behavior. So perhaps we can get this on a future agenda in the appropriate time.
Can I ask what kind of junk, we'll go through you first.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I just wanted to know what kind of junk fees are out there.
Yeah, so they can be in a number of different forms. I think there's yeah. I think by and large it's sort of fees that are not don't show up in a rental contract. In this instance, it sounds like it's a type of service that is sort of extra, a trash collection service fee for some sort of concierge trash removal, which, if I were a renter, I'd be a little bit perturbed, since I'd expect my solid waste costs to be built into the rental fee. It is, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm sure the city manager can share, say, this White House fact sheet that's been distributed recently. There are some other resources that describe what these fees look like, but they can, they take a variety of forms.
Should the realtors be? Because that goes under the realtors, doesn't it? Property management.
Yeah, we'll have that discussion.
Yes, okay. All right, Councilmember Selmore?
I just want to say, I appreciate you bringing that up, because every time there's an extra fee, somebody gets hurt, right? And so what I'd like to see is that fact sheet you're talking about, what we can do in the state, is the Attorney General working on it, and really look at what Mountlake Terrace can and can't do, but also look at our apartment rental contract, I can't remember the exact term, that we haven't really used much, and see where we're at on that. But I'm very saddened to hear that that's going on, especially what rent costs these days. It's I like the word used, unconscionable, but I don't know why it's being done or what vindicates them doing that, but I just appreciate you bringing that forward.
Okay, anyone else? Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick update. I will save most of my gushing about the National Night Out this week for our reports on Monday, but one of the great things about it is that we had lots of nonprofits and government service providers there, sharing all of the great work that they do and making resources available for our community. And one of them that was kind of time sensitive that they asked me to pass along when I was chatting with them was from South County Fire. So they're having a kids fire camp. There's 2 of them this week that are close by. So Briar, there's one on Friday, August 4th from 10:30 to noon. So that is tomorrow at Briar Park. And then in Mountlake Terrace, we are hosting one at Terrace Park Elementary on Monday, August 7th from 10 to 11 a.m. And so these are going to be fun, free activities for the whole family. You can learn hands-on CPR, which is super important. They're going to have a fire truck and relay races and a firefighter challenge and all sorts of good stuff. Suggested age was 3 and up. So wanted to make sure we shared that so that folks who might be interested could attend. That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank the city manager and the staff regarding the Tour de Terrace parade that was on Friday, a couple Fridays ago, and how it was nice to have the holes in the street fixed on the main drag, 56th, so people didn't trip and the pirates could go without going up or down when they're exploding their cannons. So that was really nice. And also the parking strips were mowed and edged, and the shrubbery was taken care of and pruned, and even the soil was amended with that real nice kind of black topsoil that makes things look nice. So the parade route was really great. Also, I think that parade, for some reason, it went really nice flow with it. So I hope the council members had a good time in the cars. And the Corvette Club would really liked it the second year, and they'd like come back the third year.
Oh.
So we'll have them secured for the next Tour de Terrace parade. I hope you enjoyed sitting up on the trunk deck or whatever they call that on the Corvette. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to
I know you want-
see who wants to
you
be
have
up
that next
front.
time.
It all depends on which order they're.
Yeah. All right. So I wanted to do some kudos there for the city manager and the staff and making the city look as best we can on the main drag there, because it was very well attended. Thank you.
I've heard nothing but good things about our Tour de Terrace parade this year. Okay, anyone else? Councilmember Woodard.
Yeah, just as I'll share a portion of this on Monday, but I wanted to extend it now to the audience, or excuse me, to the council, not this year, but planting a seed for next year. This year, we were looking at the prices for the carnival, and very much appreciate that they kept the cost down and gave many options, but we recognize a lot of children are still in households that could not afford that. So my family was able to sponsor a handful of kids, and I'll be a little bit more intentional next year. So just giving you a heads up, I will offer that opportunity for anybody who wants to join into that cause. So just as a heads up, it was a last minute decision on our family's part, but I'll be more intentional next year.
Councilmember Selmer.
And I saw that you had put that out there, and I wanted to thank you for doing that. Our former mayor used to have stacks of cards, and he used to hand them out a lot. And so it was nice that you followed in his footsteps to do that. Yes.
Anyone else? I know that my son at one time was a recipient of his generosity. All right. If I don't see anyone else's hands going up, next on our agenda is adjournment. We're adjourned.
Record.